One thing I admire about you, and something that I actually decided to do myself, is that you ran a real business in the real world before you came on the internet.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to take some time and just talk through a couple of talking points about real business in the real world versus the internet. Because I think a lot of guys, even though ideally they're gonna try to gravitate towards the internet, some of them are not. And I think there's something to be said about a guy that can create a real business and succeed in a normal traditional style of business.
Yeah. Fire away, man. What do you got for me?
Yeah. So the first one is I wrote down, it's not a fairy tale. And so I know that there was probably trials and tribulations that came. I know that people kind of come in and try to steal your model, things like that.
Mhm.
What challenges did you face on an everyday basis when it came to your business?
Oh man, that's a good question. There's a lot, if I'm being honest, because I mean the whole point of a business is to create value and a profit for the shareholders. A lot of people think that they're in business, or they'll call themselves entrepreneurs, or as you see some women out there, they'll be like hashtag boss girl sort of thing, and they don't really have a business. To me, a business is really defined as something that's going to generate over $1 million a year in annual sales. Whatever your margins look like, it doesn't matter. As long as it's profitable and it generates over $1 million a year in sales, that's a proper business. And you're going to run into all kinds of interesting problems that you're going to need to create solutions for. I've often said, and I don't think enough of like the big boy entrepreneurs, like the billionaire boys, sort of cover this enough when they're doing their talks. But the most important skill that you need to develop as an entrepreneur is going to be problem solving skills, right? Because that's really what
Absolutely.
you're doing a lot of, right? I mean, there's a lot of fires that pop up. You're going to have legal issues. You're going to have HR issues. You're going to have competitor issues. You're going to have employee issues. There's all kinds of things that are going to pop up. And if you're not resilient and can solve these things as they come at you, you're just not going to make it. I mean, that's why 9 out of 10 businesses fail. And then of the 1 out of 10 that make it, I think the number is something like within the first 5 years, most of those fail as well. And any that continue into
In the next
perpetuity,
5.
yeah, they don't even make $1 million a year in sales. Like something like 97 or 98% of businesses that succeed, past that failure point, they're never doing over $1 million a year in sales. So the guy that runs that hardware shop down the street, the dry cleaner, the corner store guy, the
Right.
whatever, the guy that's the gunsmith, the guy whoever they are out there that are running businesses, they got their own business card sort of thing. They've generally created something to just employ themselves, and they're just self-employed.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I think the statistic is whatever 90 something percent don't make it to 5, and then of what's left, another 90 something percent go out before 10.
Right.
It's some unrealistic number. And I think you're dead on there. It does come down to problem solving and your ability to be tough. I often say about my business, we'll make 11 years in March, and we'll do multi-million. We'll do over 10 million this year.
Mm.
And I always say it's not because I was overly talented so much as it was I was just either too dumb or too tough to quit.
Right.
And that's just part of it, man. And I think a lot of guys have an unrealistic expectation. A lot of times because of internet, people saying, "Oh, in a couple months you can be doing, 300 grand a month." And I just, man, in all honesty, I think when there's a gap between expectation and reality, especially when it comes to business, people tend to quit faster because they think that either something wrong with them or that it's the wrong model. So they switch gears and they don't stay in the same fight. How long, you know, from the start of your business to when you kind of knew you had it up and running, how long did it take you?
Um, I think I knew that I had something going within about 3 or 4 months because I was pulling in like 35, $45,000 a month. This was around 2003 or four, I think, around 2003, and like
When I
that
was
was
in
a
high
lot of
school.
money. Like that was a lot of money,
That's
at the
badass.
time. And I was getting paid when I was an employee. I don't know, $4 or $5,000 a month. So to put a business together that within a few months was generating close to 50 grand. We got to 50 grand very quickly after that. It was really something to behold. And then then you run into other problems too, where it's like, okay, Now that I've got this thing running and it's an oiled machine, and like every month it's throwing off 50, 60, 75,000 dollars in profit after you've paid all your expenses. And again, this is back in 2003, 2004. You start to run into problems. You're like, oh fuck, I need an accountant. I got to deal with taxes, and I have like HR issues, and I got to withhold certain taxes for the government for employees, like employer health taxes and
Right.
insurance taxes and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, I remember talking to the accountant at that time within the first year, and he comes out and he just starts yelling at me. I had a big stack of paper, and he comes out and he goes, "What the fuck were you thinking?" I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Why did you do this, this, and this, and the other thing?" I'm like, "Look, you're the accountant. You fix those problems. I don't need to deal with those problems, right? Like, don't make these
You're here to
problems my
count, bro.
problems." Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like he was all good about it, but he's like, what you have here, Rich, is you got the goose that lays the golden egg. And I don't know if you know this, but most businesses never get to this point. He's like, I've been in accounting for a long, long time, and what you created here is something that's resilient, something that's going to last long, and it basically craps out a golden egg every single month. And I was like, okay, I got you, I feel you. And it's like, okay, well, that was fun and easy, but the years after that, then there's new problems that come up. You have people that you do work for. And like I remember this one time around 2004, 2005, it was a few years into it. There was this guy that I had worked for about 5 or 6 weeks, and just because the way the thing was structured at the time, he got away with not paying me for the work, and I was livid, man. Like I was ready to just like do things that would have been illegal, that might have put me in jail. Like it was just
Been there. Been there.
thinking about stuff like that. I was like, this sucks, right? Like I was out 15 grand or something like that for the work that I had done. And I had vowed at that time never to expose myself, in such a way where I would work for somebody for free in an environment like that. So you have to, okay, all right, so, so let's plan it out, let's adjust, and you got to pivot. And I think that business, it's going to be 20 years in 2023. So next year it's going to be a 20-year-old business, and I'm still partially involved in it. We've probably pivoted about 4 or 5 times in a very dramatic way. Right. So that's the other thing that you got to get good at, as a guy, when it comes to competency skills. And if you're going to run a business, is you have to recognize when going in this direction doesn't work. And it's like, it might be a 17-degree pivot in that direction, it might be 45 degrees in that way. But you have to realize when you're up against something that you've got to find a way. Like sometimes it's an immovable object, and you got to go over it, you got to go around it. There's a great book by Ryan Holiday. It's called The Obstacle Is the Way. So it's a
Yep.
recommended read that I talk to guys about. But yeah, it's a fascinating journey, and there's nothing like it, dude. I mean, like because you're an entrepreneur, but there's absolutely nothing like it.
Absolutely agree, man. Some of the times I felt most alive in my life is where my back was against the wall in the business.
Yeah.
In fact, in some ways, there are times where I miss that. I miss that feeling. I want to loop back to something you said. You talked about, it's not a real business unless you're doing 7 figures. I agree with that. Absolutely. In addition to that, I'd like to add, what level of freedom do you have? Did you create a very, very high paying prison for yourself,
I did.
or a very high revenue prison for yourself without the net profit? Now, I'm not talking to you directly, but my question to you is, what level of freedom do you feel like a person should be able to acquire in their business in order to be able to call it a business and not a job?
I think that you have to structure it in such a way that you eventually achieve the freedom that you're looking for. You're not going to have it. I'm going to tell you straight up right now. I mean, the first few years in most businesses, about 90% of them, you're going to be handcuffed to it, doing pretty much everything. I mean, I still work all the time, if I'm being honest. I'll sometimes I'll wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'll have a notepad and I got to write down some shit because I have an idea for a video or something that I got to do, and I'll just go back to sleep. Right. So it's like you never really stop working. But now I've created my life in such a way that if I do have to work on a Sunday or a Friday night, or at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's doing something that I love and I don't consider it work. So I mean, like the framing of, are you a slave to the business? I think that for the most part, you should expect to basically be everything. I mean, you're going to be the guy that empties the garbage bins. You're going to be the guy that wipes down the whiteboard in the office. You're going to be the guy that, does the HR stuff, the tax planning, the basic accounting before you send everything over to the accountant. A lot of that's going to fall on your lap for the first little bit until you hash it out. And then after that, then, once you figure that part out, then in that business later on, or maybe the next business that you're in, You're not going to do that bullshit stuff, that the accountant would normally have to do because you've already figured it out and you know how to read the tables, you know what the QuickBooks looks like and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, most guys don't understand what it is that you're going to take on when you create a business. It's monumental. It's monumental for most people.
Right. I think it's substantially harder than people give it credit for.
It's way harder.
Truly.
It's very sexy to say I'm an entrepreneur. It's very,
Very much.
like it's very chic today, right? A lot of people will say and do that. And it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. So what were your annual sales last year, right?
Right.
It's like, $300,000. Oh, well, that's cool. That's a nice start. Like how long have you been doing that? Well, 8 years. Well, that's okay. Well,
That's
you want to keep talking, right? My time's $3,000 an hour, man. And, if you want help with that.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you. When it came to scaling for you, how did you go about choosing when to delegate? How did you make the decision? Did you kind of identify the things you were doing on a daily basis and say, okay, well, this is where this would go in an organizational board? Or how did you make those decisions when you decided to scale, and how did you find success in scaling?
Yeah. So, you want to get clear on what you like doing and what you're good at. And then you have to get clear on what you don't like doing and what you're not good at. And if you don't like doing something and you're not good at it, outsource it, contract it out, or just stop doing it altogether if it's not important. You'd be surprised how much shit I see guys do in their business because they think it's important. And all they have to do is just like set that shit aside. It's like, like when you talk to guys and they're all hung up over a girl and they're like, I don't know what to do, and she's banging Chad right now. And they're, they can't sleep and all that sort of stuff. It's like, dude, you've got all this resentment and guilt around what happened there. And all you got to do is like, that's like a burlap bag full of bricks that you're carrying around your back. Nobody cares. Just put it down and walk away from it. There's a lot of stuff that entrepreneurs can just like not do. Right. So getting clear on what you're good at and what you like to do, that's where you want to focus your time. And then when you figure out what you're not good at and what you don't like doing, that's what you can contract out, hire people to do, or just not do at all.
I agree with you 100%. What I always say on that subject is like, what do I have energy for? There's those things in business where you do them and nobody else wants to do them, but you actually enjoy doing the task. So for that reason, it's not taxing to you.
Yeah.
And then there's those things that are absolutely waterboarding. Like one for me is estimating. I cannot stand going through a stack of drawings this big so I can bean count on a high level. So I created a spreadsheet that I trusted truly with factors for man hours and how long each product takes to put in by either square footage or linear footage or whatever. And then I had a guy who his superpower was extreme focus, and he loved it. Yeah. And he still loves it. And for that reason, he's good for the role and I'm horrible for the role. And one thing I often say is that I'm constantly looking to fire myself from every position I can in the org board, so I can go higher up the board itself.
Yeah. If you want freedom, then you definitely have to remove yourself, from the day-to-day tasks. You want to be the guy that flies up to altitude at 30,000 feet like an airliner, and you just kind of look down at the landscape and you see, okay, there's a big ass river over there, and I see the mountains over there, and flat plains over here, and you see all the farmland. That's basically what you should end up doing as an entrepreneur. You shouldn't be on the ground farming the land. You shouldn't be dealing with any of the day-to-day stuff. You should have people on those tasks. That's what smart guys do.
I absolutely agree with you. And one thing I'd add to that is, for me, getting up there and looking at the machine and the cogs themselves, which would be the systems and processes, is where I really enjoy, because it's quite a creative thing to do, to really think about the psychology of a sales script, or the way people are going to take, for us, like a pre-qualification package of where we're like talking about our safety or quality or our production and how we get things done, certifications, things like that, things that I believe, where I get to sit in the client's shoes and think about, okay, what really matters to this individual when we go out on a project for them. I enjoy being at 30,000 feet, like you're saying, because it really allows you, and this is a Gerber thing. It's like, the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician, manager, and entrepreneur. I like being up top and engineering the systems and the cogs that run together that make the business run as an actual business from outside of it. And it seems like anybody that's successful to any degree, generally they're able to find a way to step outside the business and not be a technician any longer. Did you start
that, by the way?
That's eMyth. I did eMyth for 2 years.
Okay, yeah. So there's lots of resources out there like that. eMyth is a really good one. There's a stuff, I think it's Gazelle's. What the hell is his name? I met him at a conference once. He's very popular. Vern Harnish, I think it was. You know,
I
he's
think I
got
might
another really good system too. But all you got to do really, I mean, if you don't have the money to buy those courses and, you know, the systems and learn how to do all that stuff, read biographies like Everything Store, which is basically on Amazon of Jeff Bezos, or Losing My Virginity, which is on Richard Branson. And you start to see like patterns that like exist in all these different high level billionaires that today don't work in their business. They're basically like doing the 30,000 foot at altitude sort of job and having leaders and directors take care of the day-to-day important stuff. And they only get involved when they're needed to deal with very significant decisions, right?
No, I absolutely agree with you. I talk to about 3 or 4 people every day that manage either a business or a major division in a business. And then I get the reports. And then weekly we do a meeting where we go over statistics by position in the org board. And it's very helpful to me to make my decisions or who I'm going to pick up the phone and call to try to help, because like management is always guiding people back. They kind of get off, you got them back.
Yeah.
But most of my week is free because we're measuring by statistics. People understand the 5 roles and responsibilities of their position in the org board. And then based off of numbers, not emotion, not whether I like the person or not, we make decisions on hiring and firing and or coaching and getting somebody back on the right track, just kind of guiding them back to where they need to be, or fixing some small rock or something in the cog to make it then again run smooth. So yeah, man, I'm gonna have to check that book out. I might have to get you to text it to me, because that's another thing about entrepreneurship. I'd be interested to know that from you.